Welcome back to another video tutorial about the Visual Page Builder. So in the last video we created this resume component. Now in this video we're gonna see or explore more about our CMS and how we can link it to our page builder. But before that, we had a problem the last time with this component. So basically when we append a new instance of it, it will not work until we refresh the page. And even if we have multiple ones, they're not going to work. Only one will do. So you have only to append one and you have to refresh the page in order to get it work. So first thing we're gonna do in this tutorial video, we're gonna try to fix this problem. So as you remember in the last video, we talked about this problem and its cause, which is running the JS files without re-implementing their functionalities using React. So because if you let me explain it, so each time a page is loaded, so here we have a page. Each time it's loaded, our JS files is loading also. But in that case, we will have a problem. So when I append a new resume, this JavaScript code will not get this component running because it's only run one time at the as the page is reloading. So what we're going to do is we're gonna try to grab the JS code that runs our component, which is the carousel, or let's say the resume component, and we're gonna try to make this function or JS code to work every time we append a new instance of our component. So we're gonna grab the function that makes the resume working and we're gonna execute it every time we append a new component, and also we're gonna execute it only on the components created, so it will not affect the other instance if they are in the page. So this is what we're going to do. So this approach, if you remember, I told you there's two ways. Even the first way is importing the JS file as you do with the CSS. The second thing is not important, it's the JS files at all, and re-implement the functionalities using React or some libraries in React. And this approach, we can call it a hybrid approach. So we keeping the files, but we're gonna obtain some JavaScript functions that for specific component that have problem like this component, and we're gonna try to rerun this code each time we append a new instance of this component. So that's the approach. So this approach is more easier than re-implementing everything in React, but re-implementing everything in React is the best solution, so you get the best performance for your website. So let's try to apply this approach on our components. So the first thing we need to do is looking for the JS files. So here's the first JS file that we have to look to it, which is the mine.js. So all the functionalities in our website are written in this file. So this file, I'm gonna look at this file to see or to find which the piece of code that runs our resume components. So if you see this file with me, the first thing we're gonna notice is the fake loader, which is the loader of the page, and we have this smooth scroll, which is responsible for making the effect of clicking elements and scrolling to their targets in the navbar. So when I click on, for example, the contact, is going to get me to the contact. For this functionality, it's about the navbar on the mobile. So it's basically collapse it and show it and hide it when we click on a navbar link. And here the thing that we need, which is the carousel resume. So basically this code is the responsible for making this resume working. So to make sure that is, we're gonna comment this code and see if the carousel is still working. So after I'm gonna refresh the page, the resume is not working. So now I'm sure 100% that this piece of code is the responsible piece of code to run this component. So what we're going to do is basically import this function from the my.js file and implement it here in the resume component. So each time a resume component is loaded, this code will work. So this component will 100% work, even there is multiple ones, even I don't need to refresh the page in order to work, to make this component work. So how we're gonna do it? So the first thing, we're gonna comment this this code, but before that we're gonna copy it and we're gonna put it inside a use effect. So when we use a use effect with empty dependencies, so basically like we're telling React to run this code one time every time this component renders. So this is what we're going to do. And let's go back to our component, and you see the component is working. So now let's append a new instance. Sorry. Okay. Oh, I appended two. So even I appended two instances, they are working just fine, and I don't need to refresh the page each time. But there is some thing we have to be careful of, which is this selector. So basically this code means that this code will try to search for any A.El carousel in our website and try to apply the A.El carousel function on it. But here there is a problem in that, because if I appended a new resume like this, so the code in the use effect will run for each one of these, but they are also set up and don't need any extra setuping. So it's recommended to make this code or this use effect runs only on our components without affecting the other ones. So so it's not make a problems or make our another components not working as expected. So in this case, I don't think it's a problem, but in other cases it might be. So what we're going to do to make sure that this A.El carousel function runs only in our components and not other components, we're gonna use the use ref hook from React. Let's call it or let's call it ref. It's good. Use ref. So in this use ref, we're gonna make a reference to our to this element, which is this div, and make this code only work with this element, not the other elements in the page. So what we're going to do is set up a new ref, give it an HTML element, and let's give this ref to this element as we agreed. So there is a TypeScript error, so I don't want to waste time on it. Just let's pretend it has any. And we're gonna use this ref here. So let's call it if ref.current instance of HTML element. So basically I'm making sure that the current reference is an HTML element, so I won't get an errors, and I'm gonna put this code inside. So we use the ref function inside the use the ref variable inside the use effect, so we have to append it to the dependencies. So each time this reference updates, this code will rerun. So for example, if the ref.current is not yet defined, this code will not work, but after it will be being defined, we're gonna rerun the use effect function because of this ref dependencies. So make sure your ref is in your use effect. And the next thing, instead of looking for this class, we're gonna use this ref.current component. So now we make sure that this code is only working for our elements in this component, not the other ones. So we make sure that every instance of this component will not be interrupted by another ones. All right, so let's test if everything is working. Let's append a new one. Okay, great. So our code is working 100%. Let me just refresh the page and make sure another time. Okay, great. So after we implemented or fixed the resume components and it's working 100% now, we're gonna move to the next component, which is this portfolio. So in this portfolio component, we're not gonna implement it in the same way we did before. So we're gonna learn new thing. So the thing that we're gonna learn is how to leverage this CMS panel to help us building our website. So basically the CMS has a way of helping us, which is creating some models and control them from the CMS and import them into our website. So to give you an example of a model in the CMS, so the media. So the media here is a model and it has a lot of data, as you see. And inside my builder, when I edit an image, I have a reference to this media from my CMS. So the origin of this media is coming from my CMS, and I can use it in my page builder. The same thing we're gonna do with this portfolio. We're gonna make a reference to our portfolios in our CMS here. We're gonna add a new sidebar item called portfolios, and inside these portfolios we're gonna declare all of our portfolios, and we're gonna use them in our page builder to fill the data. Okay, so this solution is optimal for the portfolio because in this case it's better to manage your portfolio from the CMS, and in the builder you only make a reference to them. So like you say to the builder, in this portfolio I want that project I have in my CMS. So that's very useful, especially when you declare this component multiple times in different pages, so you don't need to write the same data of your portfolios in each page, but only make a reference to them in our CMS panel. So now let's see how we can implement this. So the first thing, we have to declare our portfolio model. In order to do that, we have to go to our project and look for the models folder. In this folder, we can declare all of our custom models that we're gonna use. So let's create a new file and call it portfolio.model.js. So the model.js extension is required, so this in order to make this model work and recognize it by the CMS. So I already copied a template we're gonna work with. So the first thing, as you see, we importing the fields that we used in the builder when we declared the props of components. So we have the same ones here, and here we're gonna export an object with this schema. So the first thing, we have this edit prop. So this prop is basically we're gonna learn about it later. Okay, the second thing is the name. So in this case it's vehicles, but in our case it would be portfolio. The primary field refers to the primary column of this model. In this case it's the name. So basically how you identify this model. So I'm gonna identify a portfolio item by its name. Okay, and here for the I18N, it's for localization, and we're gonna learn about it later. For the drafts, when it's true, this model will have the draft option, so you can create a portfolio and keep it as a draft. All right, so the most important prop, which is the properties. Here we're declaring the schema of our portfolio. So if we go back to the template, each portfolio item has an image, has a title and a small title. But another thing very important which is the category. So each portfolio item has its category. All right. So we have 4 properties: the image, the title, the small title, and the category. So let's change this to title and make it as a primary field, so which is a string field, and we have a description. In our case, we don't have a description, we have a let's call it a key. All right, and keep it short, and we have an image. So here for the image, we're not going to use the previous function or the helper function that we used in the page builder, but instead we're going to use a model field. So a model field is basically pointing to a model. In our case, we have an image, so the model will be a media. And you will notice that we have this validate prop. So it's like telling the CMS panel that this field is required. So the user must fill these properties in order to create a portfolio item. And the last thing, as we decided, the category. Which is also a string field. Great. Now for this preview prop. So basically in this prop, we're describing how this model will be displayed. So for example, here in this, when I try to specify a media, it shows in this way. So basically here in the input, I can specify which image and which title will be printed in here. So in this sense, for this instance, I want title and the image to be displayed when I'm trying to choose one of the portfolio items. And for the table, we can specify which properties will be printed when we have a table of portfolios items. So in this case, I want the title and the category. Okay, let me just correct this portfolio. Great. Now after we specified or declared our schema of portfolio or our model of portfolio, we have to run a new command, which is npm run migrate. And because we are in a dev environment, we have to add -dev. So this code basically will migrate the CMS with the new model we defined in here. It's the migration term is generally in the IT is migrating the schema of a database. The same thing we're gonna do here. We're gonna migrate the schema in the database of our CMS in order to load our new model, which is the portfolio. Now if we go back to our CMS and refresh the page, you're gonna notice that our portfolio collection is added to the CMS. Now we can access it and create a new portfolio item. Let's call it or let's grab it from the template to make it looks like the template we're working on. So here's the title, here's the key, and for the category we're gonna do flowers. So basically in this panel we're gonna get the properties that we defined in here, we're gonna get it in here. So as you see, we have the title, the image, the category, and the key, and we can specify the image, of course. So as you see in this red text, it's going to tell me this field is required because we specified a required prop in here. So great, let's specify an image and save and publish. Now if we go back to the portfolio page, we're gonna notice that a new item is added. So from now on, this CMS it's gonna help us to declare all of our portfolio items, and we're gonna use them in our Visual Page Builder like we do in this media. So that's what we're going to do in the next moment. Okay, so now we're gonna try to implement these components in the Visual Page Builder. So after we added a new model, we're gonna use this model with these components to to edit it. So what we're going to do now is creating a new component by going to the interface sections, and let's create a portfolio component. So as always, the first thing to do is declaring the interface. So in the interface we have the title, which is a string. And now for this portfolio, we're not gonna specify the schema like we did in the last videos, but instead we're gonna tell the page builder that this portfolios is a reference from this model in the CMS. So for this portfolios, what we're going to do, it's going to be a portfolios, and it's going to be a list portfolios and WC list. But here is a difference, because in this case we're gonna grab the data from our CMS and not from the page builder. So what we're going to do now is we have to declare here in this list the type of our model. All right, and what I mean by the type of our model is describing its properties. So as you remember in here, so basically we have to describe these properties for the page builder. So we're gonna start with the title, which is a string. You have to notice something very important in here. I didn't use the WC. So why? Because in this case we making a reference to our CMS. So the CMS does not need a WC or WC list, because only the builder need them to map every piece of data which is with its address. But in this case, for the page builder, this whole item is representing a model field of type portfolio. So we don't need to mention any address of this inside properties, not for the title, not for the image, not for anything. So for that, when we're using a reference to our CMS, we don't use this WC or WC list to declare our schema of the model. So the next thing we have is key, which is also a string, and category, also a string. And for the image, we're going to use media props .media. So basically we're going to use the predefined media props and access the media prop in order to explain for the page builder the schema of the image. All right, so great. Now let's create the props variable. So we have a title, which is a string field, if it's a default of my portfolio, and we have a portfolios prop, which is going to be a list field, and each item of this list will be a model field. So the model field needs, the first argument will be the model. We're going to tell him portfolio. The name must be the same one that we declared in here. The next thing will be the query. So basically in this query we're going to specify which properties we need from this model, and in our case we need the title, we need the image, and for the image it has multiple, it's an object, not a string or a sample value. So if you go in here, so for the media, which is a builder media, so basically you can do something, we can replace this media props with builder media and it's going to work. So basically this interface describes the object of an image, which is basically containing URL, width, height, public ID and type. So in this case, what we're going to need from the image, what we're going to need is the public ID and the width and the height. Alright, this is the prop that we need in order to render an image in the Visual Page Builder. So the next thing, is the key and if the category. Yes, so this is the properties we need: the title, the image, and what we're going to need from the image is the public ID and the width and the height, and we're going to need the key and category. So this syntax in here, if you find it familiar for you, it is the GraphQL syntax. It's very similar to GraphQL. So basically we take only the properties we need from a model to increase the performance of loading. So great, we can specify default value. Alright, great. For the default value in here, as you know, we have to specify some default instance for our portfolio. For example, let's do a 1. So let me make something very useful in here. I'm gonna declare an interface. I'm gonna call it a portfolio. All right, and this interface basically will describe the portfolio instance, as you see. And inside of this list, I'm gonna just make a reference to our portfolio. The next thing, we're gonna use this portfolio to help us not make a mistake when we're declaring some default values. So here I'm gonna specify as this default will be an array of portfolios. So now when I click Control Space, it's going to tell me which properties I need to append in here, as you see. For the category, let's flowers, and we have key. Let's make graphic design. So basically what we're going to do, we're gonna add some default portfolios to show when we append a new portfolio item. All right, so basically let's do this and repeat it like this. Okay, so in this case we're gonna get 3 portfolio items. And if you notice, we didn't specify the image, but we're gonna fix this problem when we rendering the components. Okay, so there is a shortcut for this. So basically we can do something like this. If I copy this object, I can do something like new array of 3 items dot fill with this object. So basically this creates an array of 3 items and it's going to fill it with this object. Great. Now the next step is declaring the JSX component. Let's call it portfolio. Okay, great. Let's import the C function as always. And let's return the JSX code. So let's go to the template, so and look for the portfolio. All right, this is the portfolio. Let's copy this, go to our HTML, to JSX tool. Great, and let's put our portfolio components in here. Great. Let's start first by importing the properties from our interface. Perhaps let's declare the address. Oops. Great. Let's start by the sample thing, which is the portfolio title. Title 0, and this should be title. And save. Great. Now if you notice, we have these groups and we have this portfolios item. So the first thing we're going to implement is the portfolio, and later we're gonna see how we're gonna implement these. Okay, great. So let's skip this for now and let's see the root of our list. Which one will be? I think it's this. Okay, great. So this is the root of our list. Let me just fix that. Let's remove all the portfolios items and keep only one. Okay, great. So this is the root of our list. Let's put the address, portfolios, and portfolios of 0 that month. We're gonna get a portfolio and an index, and we're gonna render this component. Great. Let's structure our code a little bit. Now good. So the first thing, we're gonna declare the address as always and the key. And now we're gonna replace the static values, but be careful. As you remember, the portfolios is a list of portfolio object which containing data without addresses. So what that means? So it's mean when I replace the title, for example, and we're gonna specify portfolio that title without accessing the 0 index or without specifying the address in here. We're gonna keep it just like this, okay? Because this portfolio is not containing the data of the address, it's only containing the data. All right, so we're not going to specify any index in here, we're not going to specify any address. Good. Let's complete the same thing with other things. So we're going to do here portfolio dot key, and we have to replace this image also, not this image, this image in here. So as you remember, in the default values we didn't specify an image, so we have to expect that the image is not exist in the portfolio. All right, so in this case we're gonna do portfolio dot image, in this case not a portfolio dot image, so we're gonna render this placeholder if we don't have a portfolio image. In the other case, if we have a portfolio image, we can render the same component that we used to use. So media comp.com. Great, let's import it. So here we're going to specify the media, which is portfolio.image. If you remember in the last videos we used this syntax. So in this case it's not going to work, so we have to use this syntax, because in the last cases we had an image that's containing also the out or the out input. All right, in this case we have only an image without an out, without anything. So to make you understand, we use this media props interface which is containing media and other properties. All right, but in our case we used this builder media, which does not contain any extra information except for the builder media. So in this case, when you use the builder media and define direct model in here, not a direct model, but we use a CMS model, we have to use the media component in this way. All right, great. And we have to specify also the width as always. I think a 400 or 500 would be good. Now great, we replaced all the static values, I think. Yeah, but there is a small problem. As you see, we have the URL of the image. So if we have an image, we have to render in here its URL. In order to do that, the first thing we're going to check if the images exist, and if it's not exist, we're gonna just put this value in here. We're gonna use the resize media. All right, here we're gonna specify the media, which is portfolio dot image, and here the necessary width. So something very important to notice here, when I click on a portfolio item, it's going to show me a bigger version of the image, which is the image, and this image is basically this coming from this URL. Let me just put a slash in here. So in this case, I need more width than the width in here. So basically let's do 1200 would be good to render an image in this size. So great, now I think we replaced all the static values. Let's export our components and test it. And now let's specify the components in the builder configuration. Great. Let's go back to our page builder and refresh the page. I think we have a problem. It says me the $sign of the jQuery is not defined, which is a huge problem, by the way. So this problem telling us that the $sign of the jQuery is not defined. Alright, it's a problem with the resume component. So let's go back to the resume component. So basically, I think the problem is this component rendered before our jQuery script is loaded. So basically this JS file, which is jQuery library file, is not it didn't import it yet, and this component is already rendered. So to fix this problem, I think we could fix it in the document. So as you see, we loading jQuery as lazy unload, and that's a mistake. We need to load jQuery before interactive. So before our Next.js starts rendering our component, the jQuery must be there. So when we use it in our component, which is the resume component, it's going to work. So basically, we're gonna change the strategy of all these dependencies except for the contact form and my.js, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because these two components basically need to be executed after the components are loaded. All right, so these need to be executed before the component loaded, and this after the component is loaded, because this makes reference to our components and to make them run. And this is just a library that needs to be defined each time I'm gonna use it, even if in this JS files or in my components in the use effect. So great. Another thing to mention is we have to add a slash, so these files will be imported in all pages, not only the home page. So great. So let's test if this is working. Let's refresh the page builder, and now I don't have that problem anymore. So great. So let's test the portfolio component. Let's append it. So as you see, what I have here, I have my component. I can edit the title. I can't edit these because we didn't implement them yet. And here I have my portfolio items, and the builder will deal with them as they are models. So if I double click on them, you see I have this panel, and I can choose one of my portfolio items that I declared in the CMS and choose one of them to append it as my portfolio. Great. I think we have a small problem in here. I think this is not rendering as it should. So let's investigate the problem. That's good. Display block. Okay. I don't know why this problem appeared in here. So basically this must be a display block. So we can fix this problem very easy by making that a block element. I don't know how to connect this. Let's try display block. So that should fix the problem. Okay, it's not fixed yet. We are in a resume. Honest mistake. let's go back to the portfolio and make this title block. Okay, the problem is fixed. So as you see how we implemented this component in a different way. So we declared model in our CMS and we make reference to it in here. So basically if I created another portfolio, let's call it development for the key, category, div, title, GWE project, and let's specify another image and save, publish. And if I go back to my page builder, double click, and I have my new GWE project. So this is basically how you use models with the CMS and integrate them with our builder. So basically now I can edit portfolios more easily rather than editing the image, the text, and all the things manually each time I wanted to add my portfolio item. So I just double click on them and specify a portfolio item and it's appended. Of course I can add more items and create new portfolio items and use them. So now let's talk about these groups. So they are completely static now, but we need to make them dynamic and changing depending on our portfolio keys, which is this, as you see. So what we're going to do is we want to, using React, we want to get every different key, not key but category, I think. Yeah, category. We specify this category field to split these portfolio items into groups. So we're going to, first thing we need to do is get every different category for all of our portfolio items and print them in here. All right, so to do that in React, I'm going to use a use memo. So let's call them groups, use memo, and as dependencies is going to be the portfolios. Okay, so here what we're going to return, portfolios of 0 dot map. We're gonna map each portfolio item with portfolio with its category, and we're gonna put these categories in a set to make them unique. Set like this. So basically this code will return every different group in an array. So to show you, I'm gonna print its value. And see what we're going to get in the console. So I think I have a problem. It's took the div word and gets each first letter of it, but this is not what I wanted. I think we have to put an array in here. Yeah, I think that's the problem, and yeah, that was the problem. So in this case we have a set of 2 items, div and flowers. And to give you a brief information about our portfolios object, here's the portfolio object. It's containing some information about the addresses, but in the first index we have our portfolio's data. So we took every portfolio item, we took its category, we have some duplicated values for the flowers category, and we put them into a set to make the values unique. So we get, for each category we get it only once. And now what I'm going to do is using this I think we can do this. Yeah, we can get rid of that and we're gonna get the same result, I think. Yeah, as you see. So what we're going to do, we're gonna expand this set into an array. We're gonna use this syntax. And now I think we have an array, and an array is better than sets because it has the map function that we're going to use to render the groups. So don't get distracted with this groups variable or this code. So basically this code grab all of our portfolios, get unique categories and put them in an array. So this is a little bit advanced JavaScript syntax, so don't worry about it, just copy my code or use ChatGPT to code your own version of this use memo. So the next thing we're going to do, we're gonna take each group or each category and print them in here. So we're gonna do groups.map. So I know that each group item will be unique, so in this case I'm going to use the group itself as a key, because I know it will be 100% unique. Now let's see. So the first thing, this CL will be static. We don't need to replace it, but we're gonna replace the other ones. So as you see, we have P in here. Okay, great. So we can comment this and see what we're going to get. Great, so I have house plan. Oh yeah, I need to replace this with group name. Now I have all of my categories and this is dynamically calculated. So for example, if I add a new portfolio item, it's called design, say for the category, so design logo as a project, it's for this flower image. And now if I specified my design logo project, you see that the design category added dynamically, so it's calculated automatically. So now we want to make our portfolio working and filtering our items, but it's not working, I think. But if we refresh the page, I think it's going to work, because the JavaScript is running only one time when we're reloading the page. So let's check. No, it's not working, and I think the problem is with this data filter argument. So each li has a data filter which is pointing to the portfolios, to some specific portfolios. So we need first to know how this is working. So I think basically for each portfolio you're gonna notice that we have a data category. So this is basically pointing to its category, and we have here the groups. Each group filters one specific category. So to make these things work, we have to make our portfolios, or for each group we're gonna give it a number, and we have to specify it in here and in here. So what I'm going to do is we're gonna link each group with its index in this array. So for this first group it will be 1, this is 2, and this is 3. And basically in order to do that, we can do something like groups dot index of this group item, and we can add 1 to make it start counting from 1, not 0. So now if I open my console panel, I could see in here for each data filter I have 1, I have 2, and I have 3. Now for the next thing, for each portfolio item in here I have to specify the category depending the number of the category depending on the category itself. So what we're going to do in here, we're gonna use the same syntax, but instead of group we're gonna use portfolio.category. And now if I go back, you see for each portfolio item I have the data category pointing to the index or the order of these items in here. So let's refresh the page and see if it's working or not. As you see now, it's working. So when I click div, I get other portfolios of type of category div. The same for flowers, the same for design. Now we're gonna face the same problem in this component when we append a new one like this and append some portfolios. It's not going to work. As you see, I need to refresh the page in order to make it work, the same as the previous resume. So I also have some problems like the spacing problems because I have two portfolios and they like interrupt each other's, because in this template it wasn't supposed to use multiple portfolios in the same page. So to fix these problems, we're gonna use the same approach we did with the resume. We're gonna go to the my.js file and look for the functions that run our portfolio filter, which is this. As you see, they are commented. So we have this piece of code which is responsible for making our portfolios working. To make sure, we're gonna comment them and refresh the page, and we're gonna notice that our portfolio is not working anymore. But if we uncommented them and refresh the page, the portfolio is going to work. Alright, so we're gonna do the same thing as we did earlier. We're gonna copy this code, we're gonna comment it, go to the portfolio component, we're gonna use effect hook and put our code inside. So now every time a portfolio will be rendered, this code will run. So let's test it. Let's remove this and add a brand new one, and not resume, but okay, portfolio. Here's the portfolio. Let's okay, I think we have a problem. When I click on a portfolio item, it will show this pop-up, so I can't do a double click or edit it visually, but instead I can edit it in the edit panel. As you see, this is the portfolios. Let's add the first portfolio, second one, and the third one, as you see, and oh, it's not working as it should. So it might be some problems. Yeah, and I think the problem is we need to add groups as a dependency. So each time the portfolios changes, the groups changes, but the use effect is working before the groups is updated. So it works only with some groups and others not. So let's test now. So now it's working as expected. Great. So let's add a brand new one and test if it's working without refreshing the page. So let's fill it. Yeah, it's working. Now, as you noticed now, when I add a new portfolio item, it does not have the right size. So why is the problem is happening? Because these portfolios will execute this code, and this code will run in every portfolio we have in the page. So they are like interrupting each other. So what we're going to do, we have to make sure that this code in here runs only for this component and not the other ones. So in order to do that, we're gonna use the same technique. We're gonna add a new ref. So use ref HTML element, and this ref we're gonna point it to the root of our component like this. Great. And the ref would be added to the dependencies, and we're gonna check if the ref.current is instance of HTML element. and if it's an HTML element, we're gonna run this code. But here's a difference. We're gonna change these selectors to only contain the items inside that component. So basically, if you see this class is pointing to an element inside my component, the same for these ones. So I'm gonna change the selectors as I said. So the first thing, I'm gonna point into my ref.current. So now I'm like pointing to this element, and I'm gonna search for any item inside it that matches the selector. So I make sure that this code will run only for this element that is the child of this root elements. So it's not going to interrupt the other components of the same type. We're gonna do the same for these as well, and save. And now we're gonna go back to our page builder. Let's remove these. Let's refresh the page, and see now when I append a new portfolio item, oh, it still have not the right size. So let me check. Yeah, we have a problem in here. We have to use the same syntax for this selector as well. No need for this, because this is basically pointing to this element, which is the child of this. We only need to make it in here. Sorry. So here and here. This is fine. Okay. Let's test now. Let's remove that and refresh. Let's add a new. Oh, same problem. They are affecting each other. So the problem is still happening, even we make sure that we make every use effect is individual and not interrupting the other components, because we wrapped any selector with the root element, but the problem is still happening. So in this case, I think this is the filter library that this template uses. So I think this library basically take this selector, and inside that function, which is the filter IZR, it's looking for any selector that match this class and use them to calculate the height. So basically, when it's run on this component, it will take this 6 elements and add them to this 3 elements and then do the calculation. So here's the 6 elements, and it's leaves some space for these as they are belong to this component. So as you see, we have 6 items, 3 empty space, and here we have the space for 6 items, and we have the 3 other items. So I think to solve this problem, we can do something tricky in here, which is replacing this class name, all right, with a unique class for each instance of this component. So the first thing we might do is generating a unique classes, all right. There's multiple ways to generate unique IDs or classes in this way. Let's do a variable, and let's call it RD. We're gonna use a function in the math. Let me check this. Okay, math dot random. This will generate a random number for us. We're gonna convert it to string, and we're gonna replace dot with 0, because basically this method random is going to give us 0 point some numbers. We're going to convert them to string, and we're going to replace that dot with a 0, because in HTML the dot means it means a selector, so it's not going to give us a valid class name. So basically this will generate a random ID or number as a string, and we're gonna use it instead of this filter container class. So this filter container class is used in 3 places: this element and in here. So let's replace its value in here and in here, and also in here. So we're going to use these codes to make dynamic variables inside strings. So we basically now changed the previous class name with a random one that will be generated for each instance of this component, and we guarantee that is unique because we're using method random, which gives us each time a random number to use it as a class. So let's go back. I think the problem is fixed, as you see, and if we open the console and look for our container that's holding all the items, you will notice that it has a class which is a random number. So this is the class. We generate a random class for each component. So when this library is working and take this class as argument and search for it on all of our page, it's only gonna find the items associated to its components and not the other components. So let's test it again and add a new portfolio items. As you see, it's working great. So another thing I noticed here, the pop-up that shows the image is not working anymore, like this. So let me go back to my code and see. I think this is the magnific pop-up is the one responsible for making this pop-up appear. And oh yeah, I think I got the problem. So basically we're making a ref to our component, and this code is basically take this element and try to find itself, because as you see the portfolio class is belong to the root element. So basically you're selecting an element and trying to find the same element as a children. So in this case, let's just remove this find, and I think it's going to work. And let's see now. Yeah, it's working. Now it's working. Great. So I think we finished with this portfolio element. I think it's working great. All things are working. So great. So it might be confusing with these jQuery codes, but to solve these problems, you have to rely on your skills in jQuery and the web development in general. Okay, so it might be hard to know what the problem might be sometimes, like we see in this filter library. But as I said, it depends on your skills in web development. Sometimes you will solve the problem, sometimes no. Yeah, so it depends on your skills. So it's not always required to make the components working 100%. So it depends on your skills. So it's not a problem if the component not working 100% as it should be, but yeah, you try your best. So these kind of problems will not appear if we try to re-implement the React from scratch, the React I don't know what I'm saying. Oh, I'm getting tired. I think we're gonna stop here and stick with this progress. So thank you for your attention, and see you in the next video tutorial.